I'm Margaret Ann Windsor, and I have to use that name because I was kidnapped in 1941. I was born in 39, and I was brought to Moulton, Alabama from the UK, from London, from Buckingham Palace, or one of the palaces, because after I found out about my kidnapping and after I was in a campaign in 1983, and I'm going to show this real quick. This is Larry Flint. I was flown out to his home, and he did this article April of '84. Now, I'd already run for U.S. Congress, and he had flown me out there um, to replace Congressman Dr. Larry McDonald from Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta. I had written a medical malpractice book, and part of it was about Larry McDonald, Congressman Doctor, and murders that happened there and connections to the Center for Disease Control. He says here that I know who's responsible for his shooting it was in Lawrenceville, Georgia. I was doing the book in Marietta, which is near Lawrenceville, Georgia. Marietta's suburb of Atlanta, really, Marietta, Smyrna, where I lived for a long, long time. Anyway, I was writing about mind control and programming people to shoot where they're victims themselves, like the Virginia Tech shooting next door here at Blacksburg, where the 32 were shot and killed, the students, and the one student that was from South Korea was programmed to turn around and shoot himself. He was programmed just like the ones he had shot. The motive is lies within the people doing the programming, or the person or persons doing the programming, and now it's widespread and vast. It's something you can't see, and therefore some of these that I've told about them because they have been done deliberately in patterns. So I'll leave it there. I had a letter from the FBI, June the 23rd, my father's birthday, by the way, King Edward VIII. Only it's in 1979. The feds sent the letter. Also, there was another one from Agent Guest. Things like this happened in conjunction along my life, the journey. I went to Agent Guest. They had a satellite office in Marietta, had been there for years. And when I did the book and some things, I thought the FBI had just come in. I didn't know they had been there since the day I arrived in Huntsville, which I'm going to read a letter that kind of supports this from Jack Hartsfield. Anybody can Google Jack. They may not see that he was FBI. He worked as a reporter for the Huntsville Times, and later, after I was out at Mr. Flint's in the campaign in 1983, October, twice, I returned because I had a car that was leased to me by Hustler for a year, and they just kind of turned me loose, and I had no money, couldn't get a job after I worked for Ron Ziegler out of Maryland, telesecretary out of Kensington, Maryland. So you get the gist here, Kensington as in. I worked for the district attorney, Fred Simpson, in 80. Simpson as in the Doyle Duke, Golden Triangle Duke, as in the Duke of Windsor. Simpson as in Wallace that married a double, actually. I was just finding out, but they put clues there. And somebody's going to say, oh, that woman's crazy. I am sad that you've used that language for me, because I am the opposite, and I've paid a price. I didn't kidnap myself. I'm an honest lady, and my children have been, I hope they're alive. That's all I can say. And to be referred to in the manner, I did this book. I'm a caring person. I started doing the book, and I didn't know my real name until '83. Because I thought people should know what was going on in the medical field that was being done that was wrong. And so far, it's I've been called every name in the book, okay? Now, I know there was something else I wanted to put up about Mr. Flint. I honestly don't know if that's Larry Flint that I met out there. I know that I talked with him. I could talk with him very easily, and he took me around in the library, and I put down a lot of things on a legal pad, and I wish I had kept it because it makes sense. I don't know how. I think the FBI run Hustler magazine because FBI called me when I was in D.C. in Falls Church and sent me this. They sent me this Hustler magazine, but they'd written about me prior, but I can't remember when I ran in the campaign they did. So anyway, I ended up coming, Jack Hartsville, I was talking about him, a reporter, FBI. He covered Los Alamos there, just outside Santa Fe, and he had gone there to work in for the New Mexican News. Now, I have that, and I've put it up before, but next door is Georgia O'Keeffe, my aunt. The artist. She has Ghost Ranch, or did, and it's still there, I believe. Isn't it odd? I can't even go into my aunt's own home because of the way it was done illegally. Now, I guess I'm skipping around, but anyway, I stayed with Jack for a couple of weeks there, a perfect gentleman. He saved my life, probably more than once, but I'm going to read part of a letter again that I've put up in the past. Because he was out at the New Mexican News on my way back. I couldn't give the car back because no one would take it. So anyway, I have to laugh to get through it. So I've been thrown out here to sink or swim, I suppose. Now, I found out about my real name, and I could remember, and I put this up so I know I'm being redundant to a degree. I started remembering some of the things actually when I was kidnapped and brought to Moulton and surrounding that time. And I'm going to show this. George, this is George here, and this is me. I don't know if you can see. And that family. This is Lionel, who's mother of the twins. I was put there in JFK and his father, Joe. Joe was appointed ambassador to England in 36 till they kicked him out in 46 by Roosevelt, who was in on the whole thing of the takedown of my father. He never married Wallace Simpson. She married a double. There were more than one double. And there was a whole lie about my dad. And that's what is so painful to know what he and my mom went through. He was married to Claudia Ruth O'Keeffe, sister to artist Georgia O'Keeffe. My mom was a school teacher, for goodness sake. Now then, back to George. His name was George Washington, and he's got a different last name, which I don't want to cause him any pain. He did a few months back. Well, actually, it's been over a year now. He got my phone number and called me. And I hadn't spoken with him in a long time. But now, when I was put there, I was age 2. And George was, 3 years older than me, okay? 2 years older than the real Peggy. But he's the only one that owned up. Well, I haven't talked to that many. This is just one of those sisters to Lina Dempsey. They put me there and gave me the name of Peggy Ann Dempsey Childers. I still have to use that name is the sad part. My name is Victoria II. I'm the legal heir. The minute I was born, because papers were drawn up by my father, Edward VIII. He doesn't have another daughter. So I met all the other people are lying, and I'll just go ahead and say it. They're nothing but liars. Emily has, I hate to put her in here with my pain and suffering. This woman, I proved her when she said that her mother had gotten pregnant. This is a kind of smut you talk about smut that they've thrown out at my dad, and I don't like it. Hell no. I don't like what you've done to me. It's a horror story in my children, Mark and Scott, just because we're heirs to the British Crown, the legal. so that I don't bouncing around, because this is really not easy to tell. I don't have someone writing my speeches. By the way, I'm going to jump around a little bit more. Larry Flint, I said that I was out there and met him, and I'm not sure it's Mr. Flint, because the real Larry Flint, a magnum. They shot him with a magnum, and I was told by NBC reporter that his insides were all over the sidewalk. Now that's what they did to Larry Flint. And now then, I don't know if this is Larry Flint or not. I thought it was when I was out there, but he told me the first thing he said to me was they meant to send you back a vegetable. So when he said that, I pretty much knew that he said, I know all there is to know about you. And he knew about what they'd done April Fool Day of '80, and I thought it was because of the book I had written. It may have been in part, but mostly it was because of who I am and my kidnapping and who did it. The Illuminati, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers, Kennedys, Roosevelts, and my own Uncle George, Elizabeth's father. So she's illegal. And I'm going to bounce around a little more. This is her brood. They have been educated. They've married into other influential people here within the UK, and all this HBO and all this movies and made for HBO, etc. movies. Why? They send pictures every day or ever so often, let me put it this way, to NBC particularly, and the others in New York City. So they keep their names in the headline. They not once have told the truth about me, that she's illegal. She has financed all of their colleges, or helped, and their weddings, and allowed them to marry into wealth, who would not, I suppose, would not welcome me back when I've done nothing. This woman is a war criminal. She should be arrested. And if you talk about Adolf Hitler, look at this woman, and you love her and bow down to her. Americans do too. They couldn't rush to get over to Margan Meckel. I can't even talk right now, so somebody will say, yeah, rather than thinking I may have just been through hell all my life and trying to tell this and get my name back and my children, that just maybe I'm old and I'm a wee bit tired here. Meghan Markle, okay? You know, nobody said anything about, somebody I heard on YouTube said Elizabeth was so refined and her speeches were just like better than any other presidents and all this. Do you know, to whoever put this up, she stood by and watched. She knows who my mom is. She knows Wallace Simpson married a double. She knows, always has known where I am. I was put at age 2 in a family of, I won't go ahead and say it, it's so horrible. I was put out there picking cotton. When I was so little, I couldn't pull a cotton sack. And drink water, I'll say it again because it used to tear me up, out of jugs where everybody in the field that was picking cotton drank out of it. That's the least of it all. I have been tortured. Jean, that's still alive, and I dare her to ever tell me. I don't even see her. She knows all about the kidnapping. She knows all about the murder of the twins, Peggy and Carl, by Lina Dempsey. Just think, they told me to call that woman mother. Can you believe that? My mother is George O'Keeffe's sister, Claudia Ruth, a beautiful lady. This is my dad, Edward VIII. No, I don't like what's been done to him. Now, anybody that makes a statement that she's so eloquent and she's all this and that, she went to college, she went to the best school, she's had a life that very few would ever have access to. And because I'm the real monarch at age 2, and my father told the truth and wouldn't go along with the world government, it's in power now, the United Nations up in New York with the Rockefeller Center, Plaza and headquarters that remember the Clintons and all the stuff in the campaign a couple of years ago, where they got their money and put it through to Rockefeller. I wonder who should really be under investigation, you know? Anyway, this woman has lived a charmed life and people bow down to her. Had I come wearing my crown, wearing fancy jewelry and expensive gowns, and my sons were able to attend the schools rather than work in there, yeah, Mark, you certainly did. I know what's been done to my children, and no, I don't like it, simply because they have the name Windsor, and who created these crimes to my father, my mom, me, and to Great Britain. The British took a toll for this, whether some of them know it or not. They certainly have. She sold out. She represents the global government. She's illegal, for God's sake. Can you get it in your head? People that make the comment that she's so nice because she stands there and smiles. She has nothing to frown about, dears. Okay, this is 1939. George is sitting at Hyde Park with his wife and his mom. Well, okay, this is George, Elizabeth's father. This is Mrs. Roosevelt. There's ties to the United Nations, to the people that kidnapped that killed Anastasia, the Romanovs that were behind it. And I'm not going to go into that again. I've told it. Anyway, that really was Anna. I don't care who says it's not. This was Anna up here in Charlottesville, Virginia, that was killed, murdered, May the 4th or 6th. It was on a Sunday, is all I can remember hearing it when I drove through there in 84. I still had the Hustler car. I was coming back from Jackson from being out of L.A. trying to, this is going to go off. And I was going to read this about Jack. I will say this, George, that I showed you the picture, did come out. He remembers the fights that went on where people knew that I wasn't Peggy Dempsey. That wasn't the same girl. And he's the only one that I know of. Jean's scared to death that they're going to haul her because she knows about the murders and all this, but then you'd have to tell about me, and that's the one thing they don't want. So anyway, George did his bit, and I appreciate him sending me the pictures and all that. I want to get to this, and I want to just read a little bit of, excuse me if I'm disorganized. Anyway, I'm going to read this the best I can now here. This is a piece out of Jack's letter. Sometimes the cloak of national security can be seriously abused, not to protect the nation's secrets, but to hide and bury blunders, even some very blurry conspiracies that more than hint of heavy criminal involvement in the defense contract. And that too was happening in Huntsville. Anyone who thought so was, well, crazy. You want to get this? I know I've been called that, and that is a lie beyond belief. I don't think very many people could have withstood any part of my life, to tell you the truth. Crazy enough to wonder why some individuals who had been in Dallas on the fateful November 22nd, 1963, would wind up being placed in Huntsville after the Jim Garrison conspiracy trial into the Jack Kennedy assassination fell apart. One of those individuals looked me up in Huntsville, and he was forced to be placed in Huntsville and discussed being interrogated in Dallas. And there was ways to deal with crazies and being crazy, at least